Evening, everybody. I would like to start by thanking the organizers for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Rajeshwari. Thank you, Richa, for giving me this opportunity to share. I'm not going to speak something new. We have witnessed to several soil health, positive technologies, which can improve soil health since morning. And I'm just going to reiterate few things through this forum. We all know about this problem, how the problem has originated. The problem is we are going through agriculture crisis, stagnation in yields, and soil health deterioration is the cause of it. This deterioration is visible in various forms, and it's one of the debates in natural resources degradation. However, the mainstream agriculture is still not convinced that following sustainable soil health practices can have sustainable production systems. What has been the approach adopted? We have mostly followed the production based approach, where soils are considered to not considered only as a medium, not as a living body. And this is also evident from our basic research from various forums, saying that, for example, from my own experience, when we are discussing about problem soils and looking for technologies for problem soils, we hardly see how problems, when we work on these technologies and when we use these technologies on problem soils, how these technologies are impacting natural resources per se, how they are leading to improvement in the natural resources per se. Our approach is mostly production oriented, how much yield we are going to get, and in that process how the resources are getting impacted is hardly studied. Diversity of soils is not considered. We are trying to implement the same kind of production systems or irrigation cropping systems the way we do in irrigated systems. We are trying to emulate this same in the rain-fed agriculture systems. Then most of the approach has been relief oriented, where solutions to nutrient depleted soils is seen to lie entirely in externally added chemical nutrients, and unsustainable practices are followed, and which are mainly based on input based irrigating. And so the solution merely is based on suppressing the symptoms for a while, and not a sustainable solution. Government, policymakers, and all the stakeholders involved, they still think that chemical application is the primary way of improving our crop and food production, and healthy soils practices which have originated have mostly been from the non-conventional agriculture production systems, for example from organic farming, biopesticide, all these kind of experiences, and all the more experiences which we have been talking now since morning. Focus has not been on living soils, but treating them through various inputs after testing. We have talked a lot about it since morning. And research also has not gone beyond technical aspects. It has mostly concentrated on the quality of inorganic fertilizers needed in different agroclimatic conditions. Besides, we've also ignored the cultural, ecological, and various socio-economic dimensions of soil health management, and gender discourse is one of them. Gender dimension, basically, women have been marginalized under the impact of modern science, which is evident from their neglected role in most of the soil health management issues. Now we have reached a point where we must look back to understand soils and the relationship. So I've tried to organize my thoughts through these points. One is, first is, what are women's relationships with soil? Is it distinct from men? And how important it is to consider their views in soil health management? And how is the gender dimension important to address long-term health of soils and its capacity to produce sustainability? We'll start with the first one. The linkages of women and women vis-a-vis soil is very different, particularly in the poverty-stricken areas, where the entire livelihood depends on the soils, and the destruction of soil, destruction of nature, it becomes the destruction of the women's resources, for making their livelihood and staying alive as well. Women have their experience of handling family food production systems, and through which are which are ecologically sound and have regenerative characteristics. How is it distinct from men? Basically, women. We all know two-thirds of the agricultural labor constitutes women, and so they have this huge burden of labor, while men take most of the control. And women largely are involved in the activities which are drudgery related, and they especially they emerge mostly as victims of any resource degradation, instead of or being part of the solution, or active agents, or as equal partners when it comes to managing the soil health in her own ways. So women farmers are there hardly they hardly contribute to the debates and decisions on the soil health. It is important because women have special dependence and special knowledge of nature, and modern technologies, modern agriculture development, they have excluded their holistic perspective, the way they understand and they respect nature's processes. The perspectives and responses of poor women, they are mostly interactive and holistic in nature, and due to their material reality, which is their total dependence on them, the actual survival depending upon them, they have a more say in that. The last question I want to address is through following, how can we engage women, why do we really need to engage women? Yes, women have a method of articulating existing local knowledge, and they have this local knowledge provides alternative ways through which we can promote poor rural communities through local decentralized solutions. Then they also have experience of handling family food production systems to improve household food security through their production at home, kitchen gardens, backyards, which they have already been doing, and they are all very ecologically sound and regenerative in nature. There are several studies done, most of these studies which have been done, women have played an important role, and it is also because maybe because the modern agriculture doesn't provide because since they don't have land titles, they don't have access to land, which impedes their access to credit, technology, so they end up doing these alternative agriculture options available to them. So precisely, so there is large involvement of women in all these activities, and the government schemes which are specifically for women for sustainable agricultural practices, also women are doing really good. Some of these projects on Mahila Kisan Sashaktiikaran Pariyojana, which is a scheme of the Ministry of Rural Development, women are doing good work in some of these in promoting some of these sustainable sustainable agriculture practices. All these experiences are suggestive of that they are more closely linked for all their initiatives are closely linked for family survival issues than men, and their attempt is always to carve out a space for an alternative existence which is based on equality and not dominance over people, and on cooperation and not dominance over nature. Some of the recommendations: it's very important to examine the opposing dimension of women as victims and women as innovative actors, because mostly women emerge as victims of any natural resource degradation or any disaster. It's also important to trace the nature and causes of soil health deterioration in rural India with respect to gender implications. It's important to explore the response of the state and grassroots groups of their deterioration and why this deterioration has happened. We also have to look for alternative approaches and strategies for revitalizing soils. There is a need for a policy shift from being present, relief-oriented approach towards nature's ills and people's welfare, in which solution to nutrient depleted soil is seen to lie entirely in externally added chemical nutrients. these solutions merely suppress the symptoms and they're not sustainable on a long run. So R&D directed towards towards crops which women cultivate based on a better understanding of women farming system can be reiterated. It's also important to address gender inequalities which are faced by women as workers, which will be the critical part of the solution. And gender dimension should therefore be a central feature of any strategy for food crisis or resource degradation. Uh, Thinking of soil management, yes, women do matter. Thank you.
May I now call upon all the panelists here so we can have a question and answer round. How much time do we have for questions? 10 minutes? 15 minutes, okay.
Most of the questions have been answered. I just wanted to reiterate a few things. One is that, you're talking about titles. Yeah, I mentioned about that. And because of that, about 12% of the women have operational land holdings only. They don't even have titles. So in absence of those titles, they don't have access to credit, they don't have access to technologies. And you may be knowing census 2011 data says that about 20% of the households are female headed. So it's really a problem for, if they don't have titles, and many of them don't have titles, land titles. So they are, their problems, they have to handle those. And in the problems related to migration also, this is happening, with more of feminization of agriculture, women have to handle, and they have no other option. They have to, tackle with the problems of agriculture. But since they don't have access to formal credit and, market and those kind of handholdings, and those problems are, related to our extension system also, because our extension systems are all designed towards, male folks, towards men. It's hardly, I remember in 2004-5 in Haryana, we didn't even have a single extension officer, at the local level. So those kind of, handholdings for women, it's not there. So it's important to see them as innovators, as equal partners, rather than being a victim, and so that approach has to be changed.
When I had to face the लड़की हो गया तो खेती सिखाने आई है लड़की है खुद ही खेती करना नहीं जानती आपको क्या सिखाएगी but when they learn कि नहीं कुछ जानती है तो उन्हें accept किया.
A big round of applause for all the panelists.